Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Lieutenant Colonel Mitch Taco Bell. I'm your host tonight on Taco Tall Tales here. It is Tuesday. My wife bought me tacos because I actually getting just a bit of my sense of taste and smell back. Yes, I battled COVID and kicked its butt. Actually, my whole family did. So we're on the mend. If I happen to do a little bit of a cough, that's just residual. Don't worry, you will not get infected. And I guess about 99.6% of the people that get it survive. So that's good news. Tonight, guys, tonight we are going to be talking to a dear friend of mine who is just an incredible pilot, funny as hell guy. And last week, we sort of talked about flying up into outer space, or at least, I was flying with an F4 pilot who was part of a secret program called MOL. And at 53,000 feet, folks, the sky is no longer blue up there, it's blackish. And the gentleman we're going to talk tonight, Huggy, he was at an aircraft probably 20, 30,000 feet above that he could even tell us. And the sky was definitely most black up there. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on Lieutenant Colonel Jon Huggy Huggins. What's
Hey,
up, brother?
Taco.
How are you, man?
I'm good. I'm pretty excited about this. This is that intro, by the way. I don't know how you did that or who did that. That was a cool intro.
Do you know what? That is my buddy down the street, Michael Costanza. A big shout out to Michael Costanza for making that and putting that together. He's going to put together another little small montage. It's a little shorter. And I got some great people up here in Fort Worth. As a matter of fact, I've got Brad Williams lives down the street and he owns Omaha. So if anybody needs any surplus stuff, including a spacesuit from a U-2 pilot or a helmet, I think they've got it right there at Omaha's. So maybe I'll have him sponsor me for the show one day, but I do appreciate his free swag he always gives me. Well, I mean, I drop a couple $100 every time I go in there, so I probably deserve it, Yeah. So how's it going out there? You're in Cali. So
I am. I'm up about 40 minutes from drive from Beale Air Force Base, home of the U-2, and it's going pretty good. I retired out of here 6 years ago, and I don't know if I'm jumping ahead too quickly, but I'm kind of back there.
Well, actually, start back. So, I mean, you spent 20 years in the Air Force.
28.
28 years in the Air Force.
28 years, yeah.
I stand corrected. And how many years flying the U-2?
Let's see. About 19 of those, I think, flying the U-2. Yeah.
19 years. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So go back. How do you get picked? I mean, I know you were like a SIR grad. You were a FAPE instructor, but how do you even hear about it and go, I think I'm going to apply to be a U-2 pilot?
Yeah, good question. So when I came up through when I went through pilot training, got picked up to be a T-38 instructor, FAPE as we say, and we like we say about every FAPE, we are handpicked like a booger. Like a booger, yeah. But 3 years of doing the T-38, and I, back in the day, so I graduated from pilot training, got my wings in '86, and back then it was, for the most part, most of the FAPEs were going to go off to a fighter. You're fighter qualified, you do your time, and you go off. 1988, the Air Force is building towards this 40 fighter wing concept, and about 88, they were going, we're not going to do it. And the last thing they needed was fighter pilots.
I remember they had that bank pilot deal. So like in 89, 90,
that was, 90, early
90s. The Navy cut all these pilots. The Marine Corps grabbed all these guys, brought them over. And I remember you guys called them bank pilots.
Yep.
Thank you for 3 years on a ground tour.
We had a few U-2 guys that came out of the bank. One guy was actually, he got his wings and they went for 3 years. He was an Air Force mortician for 3 years before they put him back in the cockpit. Yeah.
Oh,
and then he ended up back in the U-2. Great guy, but that's a whole different story.
All right. So you're a FAPE guy, and then do you have to go out to Beale to interview?
Yeah. So I was a FAPE, and I was the squadron commander's least favorite guy, and I saw the writing on the wall. The proverbial. It's not going to be good. And a buddy of mine, John Roush, was flying. He flew T-30. I was flying T-38s. He's flying T-37s, and he goes, "Hey, I'm going to go interview for the U-2." And I asked him the same thing they asked. So here we are, 32 years later. They still fly that?
Yeah.
And, back then, again, there's no internet. You don't know any of this stuff. So it's not as easy to keep up on. So John went and interviewed and got the job. And I started thinking, sounds pretty cool. He told me a lot about it, knew nothing about it. Couldn't really do research on the internet because there's no internet.
Sure.
And as it progressed on, I did some research and went, you know what? This sounds like it may be a good fit for me. So I applied at the minimum. I mean, I was still a lieutenant, and I applied at the minimum time. And the guy interviewing, Bill Gilbert, Lieutenant Colonel out of Beale, he said, "Yeah, we're going to bring you out for an interview." And I came out and
did you do a cross country in T-38?
No, it was a full TDY. It was a two-week TDY to Beale. They pay for the whole thing, like we still do. So you TDY out there in your blues, bring your flight suit, and go through about a 10-day interview. Mine ended up stretching out to about 3 weeks because of weather. Very long, tedious process, but the end result was the way I wanted it. Obviously, got to stay on the U-2.
Yeah, so you've been a T-38 instructor, which is the exact same as what you guys fly the F5 out there for proficiency and stuff, right?
They're actually T-38s out here too. So it was the exact same aircraft, the T-38A model. And we still have the A model, not the C model like they have in the training command. We still have the original A model with the analog cockpit.
So for you, it was no big deal jumping in that thing and doing whatever check ride they wanted on that, right? I mean, you're a damn instructor.
I didn't get to do it initially because when I got to training, I said, I want to go. At the time we had a squadron in England, and I said, I want to go fly in England. And the deal was, if you went to England, you weren't staying at Beale, they would not check you out in the T-38. So I was there 6 months, and I tried to convince them and cajole them because at the time, the SR-71 was still flying at Beale. So I was out there, and they would use a 38 to go chase the SR-71. I thought, I'm already an instructor, same airplane, just give me a quick, one ride, local area fam, and I can be up there chasing the SR, and they would not do it. So I didn't get to fly the 38 then, and then 6 months later, early 1990, I PCS'd and moved over to RAF Alconbury in the UK. So I was out of the 38 for a good 4.5 years.
And what was some of the stuff they would do for you? I mean, was there some psychological batteries that you had to complete to be able to be up alone? And
no,
in a spacesuit, claustrophobia.
They do a claustrophobia check. They stick you in the suit and you park in the closet for 45 minutes or an hour, whatever it is, and just put this. You get the suit fit. You put it on. Okay, bye, and they leave for a while. You're just sitting there in this dark room. All you can hear is the sound of the regulator. So it's like, okay, I do what I do now. When I put this, if we have a 30-minute wait, I close my eyes, I go to sleep. So when we get stood up even for a mission, if we get the lazy boy back, I'm out. I'm catching shut eye any chance I can. And
that's funny.
Yeah, that was it. But a lot of the first week is interviews. But really, what a lot of it is for you as the interviewee to go learn about the squadron, because not only are they interviewing you, but you're interviewing them at any time during the process. You can bail out. Sorry about that. I don't know how this is. Talk, are you still there?
Yeah, tell the PAO I got this officially checked out.
So let me turn my silencer on there. It kicked over to my computer. You do the interview part, but they really want you to spend time and go out and check out the mission, do stuff, and hang around the squadron and meet the guys and make sure that this is where you want to go. Because if you come to the U-2 program and you get there in 6 months, you're in it, you're going, this sucks. You have nobody to blame but yourself. The personnel center, the bupers or detailers, as you would say in the Marine Corps, they didn't send you there. You volunteered for this. So make sure you want to do this. And we've had a number, it doesn't happen that often, but probably at least one a year that comes through and interviews and goes, you know what? Not for me. I'll take my return ticket back. Thank you very much. And it's no big deal. It's not for everybody. It's not for everybody.
Well, so you get finally picked, and then you have to. Do they look like the average size guy? Like, hey, Huggy, you were the same size as that dude that just got out, so we're going to reuse the spacesuit, or they make a new one for you? I mean, how's that process?
David Clark with the green headsets. They actually make the spacesuits up in Worcester, Massachusetts, and they make all the suits for the United States. Well, until I guess the new SpaceX stuff, they make their own. But David Clark's the spacesuit folks, and they charge a pretty penny for those spacesuits. I'll tell you that. But there's 13 different sizes, and they do the measurements on you. And then when you get your suit, they actually make the modifications. Make sure your elbow is the seam is here and the leg seam. So with it, they get the closest of the 13 suits, and then they custom tailor it to you. So you've got your own custom tailored, usually 2 suits. You get 2 suits and 1 helmet.
What's the height regulation for the cockpit?
I think, let's see, we've had some pretty tall people in there that shouldn't have been flying the airplane. The current rules, I think, of 39-inch seating height, 27-inch butt to knee length. And I've seen guys, we have a guy, he's not here anymore, but he was 6'6". I don't know how he got in the cockpit, but yeah. Because the cockpit was built, remember the original cockpit was built many years ago when Americans were a lot shorter, a lot smaller, and we haven't grown that cockpit.
Well, I mean, do you have an ejection seat in that thing?
We do. It's the same seat that was in the SR-71, and I'm told it was the same seat that was in the Space Shuttle. The Space Shuttle had a seat in it for the first 4 flights, and it's the same. It's a Lockheed proprietary seat, if I'm not mistaken. And now we're the only ones that fly with it. But yeah, we do have the seat in there.
Well, like back in the day, though, Francis Gary Powers, he didn't have an ejection seat, did he?
Yeah, I don't. Good question. I should know that. I think they did. I'm pretty sure they did. When they went to the hybrid 2-seaters, they didn't. There was a period of time where they were back and forth, and they didn't have one, if I'm not mistaken. But he did have one, and that's right. They did, because there was a concern. He was concerned that if he actually pulled the ring and ejected, that because of the classified mission, the jet would actually blow up and kill him. That was one of the concerns they had. It was auto destruct yourself and the airplane.
Yeah. Do you still have that switch? Auto destruct.
Yeah, we have that, and we got the cyanide pill too. If we need to,
Really?
But no, they had all that. But no, it's a good seat. And what else? I think that's there's talk of doing a new seat, but I think it's only talk at this point. But yeah, it's a good. Like I said, the SR-71 had it too, and they had some pretty high speed, successful ejections out of that.
That's amazing. So, when you're up there flying, what's about the length of your longest mission?
Most of our operational missions run in the 8 to 9 hour range, but we've been slowly getting them longer and longer if we need to. The stuff we were flying in the Middle East wasn't uncommon to see 10.5 hours. Opening day of Desert Storm #2, I flew a 11-hour mission, 11.1, I think. Ferry flights, when we ferry the jets around, they can be long. I've done a couple of 12+ hour missions ferrying the jets back and forth from Europe to the United States. We had a guy, Bama Briggs, he lives down in Alabama. He flew a jet back, and he was coming back from England. Beale weathered out. He went down to Edwards, and they weathered out, and then he had to end up landing on the lake bed at Edwards with the U-2. After the whole thing was all said and done, I think it was something like a 14-hour mission. It was nuts. And then Colonel A.J. Warner, I think you know him. Yeah, he got a DFC for a mission. You have to let him tell you the story. But Middle East, I can't talk about the locations, but he ended up doing, can't go to this country won't take you, and he was, on fumes and, flew like 84 hours of flight. It was a long mission. I think it was in the 14, 15-hour range, but he got a DFC for it. Yeah, he's a great American.
Speaking of, can you see that?
Oh, look at that! Nicely done, Taco.
Yeah, how do you like that? Francis Gary Powers gave that to me back in 1972.
Back in 72.
No, I'm just teasing. Cracker gave it to me, man.
Did he really?
That's my birthday present. Yeah, I am part of the U-2 club now, baby.
Excellent.
Thank you, Cracker, if you're watching.
Well, we'll get you out here and get you out in the chase car as a minimum when you come out to the West Coast.
I am so bummed out that time I wasn't able to make that party with you when I was out helping with the ferret.
Yeah,
I really wanted to make that party. That would have been just phenomenal with all those guys up there.
Yeah, we had quite a good turnout from the airport, and a lot of the U2 guys came out after work, and we were giving rides and Cubs and Super Cubs and all kind of cool stuff. It's the U2 community is a really fun group, and we have a ton of airplane owners out there. I don't own one, but one of the retired guys has a Cub. I get to fly.
Yeah,
we've probably got a dozen guys out there that have in the squad that have their own aircraft, Huskies and Bonanzas, and we have guys doing paramotors. We got jumpers. We got everybody's into all different kind of facets of aviation. I'm a warbird guy myself. At least I think of myself as one not flying that much. But there's the aviation passion that you'll find in the U2 program for all facets of aviation. People that come through say, we don't see this in most places that I've ever been, in the military. And it's a really, really fun group, and they can really talk to a lot of different aspects of aviation, military, civilian, you name it. And Army, Navy, Marine, Air Force, Coast Guard, we've got all of them.
Right. You got a couple Marines that just joined, right?
We do. We actually, in the squadron now, we have, so let me back up. Back in 1990, early 97, we were sitting around back when you could do some smoking cigars in the squadron, about 6 of us drinking a scotch going, how are we going to get more people in the U-2 program? Well, let's do an inter-service exchange. I can't do that. I got to send somebody there. Let's rather than do an exchange, let's just do a transfer. Long story short, we started it, and the first 2 guys that came over, one was from the Navy, Vince Kadich, and Todd Kalish from the Marine Corps. He's a Hornet guy from Buford. And that kind of started the way. Those are the first 2 gold wingers that had come to the U-2 on the new inter-service transfer program. And we've the door's been opened and closed a number of times. We've probably had 30 pilots over the last 22 years do it. Right now in the squadron, I think we've got 3 Marines, and we've got at least least 2 Navy. I'm drawing. I think we got 2 Navy, maybe 3 Navy in there. So you see gold wings floating around the squadron. They're Air Force officers now, but they treat the inter-service transfer. But it's a real cool, eclectic community. It's not a fighter squadron. It's not a bomber squadron. Not a heavy squadron. Right. It's kind of a mesh of everything. And we give each other a lot of grief over it. But if you need an expert, hey, I need to know something about. I'm deploying. I gotta know what the Marine Hercs are doing out here. Oh, there's usually somebody in the squadron that can tell you. I gotta know what the helicopters over in the Navy side are doing. There's somebody that can tell you. We've got every cat and dog. It is the land of misfit toys.
I'll tell you what, I've got a bunch of RTAG, which is our Army, Navy, Marine, Hilo guys, probably listening on this thing. And if some of those guys get their fixed wing time built up, and they probably have some tail dragger time, maybe they ought to put an application in for you all. Yeah,
there's actually the inter-service program, transfer program seems to be on hold right now. I expect it'll come back up, but there's some specific requirements for coming out of another service, and especially if even we'll take rotary wing guys, but they have to have a full tour in the rotary wing and 500 hours of fixed wing military time.
Right.
But yeah, we've taken a number of rotor guys back. One of my old squadron commanders a few years ago was he was a UH-1 guy.
All right. So now you've got you got a spacesuit on. You walk out like the right stuff. You got your little briefcase with the pressurization to give you some air conditioning so you don't fog up. We
don't carry that. We have people that do that for us. No, we've got a huge spacesuit support section. But we'll walk out with the air conditioner. Yep.
Do you really? Because I was watching that Francis Gary Powers thing, and you see this Jeep pull up to the U-2, and he jumps out, and he's got the skinny mini friggin' sausage suit on.
Yeah,
it's so damn tight. I'm thinking, God, I'd look like 10 pounds of sausage in a 5-pound paper sack in that thing. And he's got this little briefcase or whatever. He just jumps up there, and he's got the helmet on with the mask. I'm thinking, I remember the mask when you put it on. It's got a one-way check valve. If you don't have it hooked up to something, you're choking.
Yeah, so they got liquid oxygen in that cooler, and so that's giving not only your breathing oxygen, but it's venting off and giving you cooling air through the suit. Because imagine wearing two wetsuits in 100-degree Northern California summer, so you're getting cooled in there. If you lose cooling in the suit, you're gonna go physiologically. You're going to overtemp in 15 minutes, so you've got to have cooling on that. But
so, what kind of prep do you have for eating? I mean, you're talking about 10 hours. It's sometimes you have to take a dump. I mean, so what does one do? For conditioning your body and your mind not to have to hit the sphincter valve, and then what do you do if you got to pee?
Well, I knew you were going to ask this question. I had a feeling you would. It always comes up every time. Anytime people talk about the U-2, it's only 15 minutes before bodily functions come into play. So I'll answer that question. First of all, on the food side, they always say, high protein, low residue diet. I don't even know what that is. I have a cast iron stomach, and I eat whatever I want. So for breakfast, they freak people out. We'd be 4 a.m, and I'd get 3 scrambled eggs with as many jalapenos and salsa on top as I could, and just mow down whatever I could before an operational mission. So
really,
and I never did. We have a plaque in the squadron, the Strato Shitters Club, because you're not supposed to crap in the suit.
Do you wear a diaper just in case?
No, you actually wear this. If I get the view there, it's called the UCD, the urine collection device. So it's a rubbery thing, and the way it works is when you first get it, you cut the size. This is actually not mine. This is somebody else's. Mine's it's so big and round, it wouldn't fit within the screen. I've got it parked out in the garage next to the 20-foot trailer. But But you cut the size.
Air Force standard right there.
But you cut the size and you put it on Mr. Hoo-Ha, and when you get into, so you've got this on, and right on the top there's that little hole, and that's where you want it sitting like that, and then you get into the spacesuit, and inside the suit there's a hose, and you'll click the hose in there. So when it's time to urinate, all you do is you simply inflate the suit. Now you're blowing up like a balloon, so you look like the Michelin Man. You blow up, and then you have a valve down by your knee on your inner thigh. You open that valve and it forces a leak into the suit the air goes shooting down through here. Now you've got this leak going, pressure, air's going shooting through. And as you urinate, it catches a stream and just flows right into the honey bucket down in the belly of the aircraft. It works like a champ. I've never had any problems with it, although we have a guy he's been doing a lot of great research, and a lot of people have the rubber allergies. And there's been some actually, skin injuries and that kind of thing with people with this and with the rubber seal that's on the helmet. So there's a big effort going on to get something a little more hypoallergenic. But this is the UCD, and it's a great piece of gear. I know my fighter buddies are like, when they're doing the haul across the Pacific, hey, can we get something like that that'll work? I guess it's pretty painful for them to try to urinate in F-16. So yeah,
they've got a piddle pack or something. I mean,
yeah.
I remember in the T-34 going through flight school, you had that little cup, and you'd have to undo everything and unzip and, adjust yourself. And the first thing you did, though, was to look in the bottom of that cup, make sure some jerk didn't take his dip and throw it in there, because the next thing you know, you'd be overflowing, and that wasn't very pleasant.
The only problem I ever had, and it's happened to a number of people, but the only problem I ever had was I was probably 3 hours into a 9-hour mission, and blew the suit up to do my first piss, and I start pissing, and all of a sudden, as it goes in, there's a little vent hose, there's a little vent, let the air out. Well, all of a sudden, I had a geyser come right up in front of me. They hadn't emptied the honey bucket before me.
Oh no!
So it came straight up. I've been at altitude for 3 hours. The canopy's ice cold, so just into the canopy and just froze. So I've got these, yellow stalactites all stuck onto the canopy, and over the next 5-6 hours, I got to watch them sublimate in the dry air. Go away with time. But very, very humorous at the time. And then I got stalactites on my canopy. That's kind of cool.
Oh my God!
But yeah, a little different. All the unsexy things you get to find out about flying an aircraft. And then as far as number 2, solid waste, you just got to work around it. And I've fortunately never joined the Stratoshitters Club, but I'm told that if it does happen, it can be described as just like sitting on a warm pumpkin pie. So we'll leave it at that.
All right. I just sitting there talking to you, and I had to itch my nose. You're at altitude with the spacesuit on, and you've got an itch that's just not going away. Can you pop the visor and just itch yourself for a second, or what's the cabin altitude?
You could. That's not ideal. But back when I flew the aircraft, up until about 8 years ago, I guess 8-9 years ago, the cabin altitude was 29,000 feet. So you're in the top of Mount Everest. We just recently
you have oxygen blowing.
Oh, you're getting 100% oxygen. You're actually getting a little force fed, because just in here in the helmet, there's actually dropped my head. There's a face seal that goes around in the helmet. And all the 100% oxygen only goes right into your face cavity. So if you open up, you are risking a little bit of hypoxia, chance of getting hypoxia. You're risking that it won't seal back up. So there's a little bit of risk if you do. So most of us really try to avoid doing that. And what you can do is on the right side of your helmet right here is where you drink out of. There's a hole right there, the pressure port, and you run a hard straw in there. And you can actually get the straw in there, or get down and get the straw in there. It's kind of picking your nose, scratching your eyeball, whatever you need to do. And it's a lot. The things you learn to do, the first time you put the suit on, the first couple times, like, man, I'm spaceman Spiff, I'm really cool. And then you realize I'm not so cool, and this suit sucks. And then you go through about a year, 2 years of wearing the suit, and then after about 2 or 3 years, you and the suit, you and the suit decide to get along, and you learn how to twirl a pencil in the space gloves, and cool stuff like that, and then it becomes much more manageable. But there's about a couple year period where wearing the spacesuit just is not fun.
It's kind of weird.
Yeah, it's different.
So can you say how high you go? I mean, let's say I went to 53,000 feet. How high average mission are you?
Yeah, we go above 70,000 feet.
So above 50,000, you got to wear a pressure suit, which I found out in the back of the F4. In case you lose pressurization, your blood doesn't boil. But 70,000 feet. if you had a pressurization problem, or like that missile, when you're watching the movie of Francis Gary Powers,
Huh?
exploded over top of them and the windshield shattered,
Yeah.
or the canopy shattered on them, it's still pressurizing for you, right? As long as the engine's working and stuff. But
Don't
how
even need the
long will
engine.
that suit? How long will that suit last
It should be
if you had
indefinite.
to eject?
So the suit is really just a second cockpit. When you're flying along, it's just there. It's just sitting limp on you. It's not even inflated. It's just there as a second layer of protection. So the engine quits, you lose the canopy seals, you have a rapid decompression. The suit there's an aneroid in the suit, and it shuts off anything leaking the suit, shuts it off, and the suit holds your body at 35,000 feet. So let's say the canopy were to fly off the aircraft, instantly go into 70,000 feet. The suit will inflate, it'll hold you right there, and you'll be at 35,000 feet, and you'll start your descent. You're going to be blown up like a balloon because the inside pressure is 35,000, the outside 70. Whew, it's going to be all blown up. And we have a design, I can't really on the camera, but it blows up so you're right in the position of right on the yoke. Oh, by the way, it's a C-130 yoke in the aircraft.
Really?
Yeah, it's a Lockheed product. We already designed a yoke. They put a C-130 yoke in the airplane.
Rock on!
Yeah,
that's cool, man.
But yeah, you blow up and then you come down, and obviously when you hit 35,000 feet roughly, the suit is zero. The differential between the suit and the cockpit is the same, and the suit's limp again. So the suit has saved my life 4 times, and all 4 of those times were in the altitude chamber where they do a rapid D to 70,000 feet, and they're aiming the altitude chamber for physiological training, and the suit blows up and keeps me alive. So yeah, we actually take it to 70,000 feet, but only in the chamber. I've never lost pressurization in flight for real.
I was gonna say, in your experience, I mean, I remember, God, I was a young captain, Marine captain on recruiting duty, and I was in Omaha, and I met these SR-71 guys, and I asked the guy, I go, "What is the scariest thing that's ever happened to you?" And he goes, "Well, I was flying over a country which is classified at an altitude that would blow your mind, at an airspeed that just incredible, and this certain country would launch these balloons with like a mile and a half long steel tether to a concrete block." And he goes, "This weather balloon thing would be way up where we were, and this thing went literally past me so close that by the time it went past my wing and my mind processed what it was, because we're moving so fast, all of a sudden I started hyperventilating inside the suit. The guy in the backseat didn't know what was going on. It was that balloon just went right by the cable, must have been a foot from the wing as it went by us." And he goes, all of a sudden it was the realization that we almost atomized at altitude, and nobody would have known what happened to us. I mean, we would have hit that thing and just atomized.
Yeah.
Be gone. So did you ever have an experience like that as you were sitting there flying along?
I had a Mylar balloon go by me. I don't know how close it was because again went by in a flash, and we're only doing 410 knots true airspeed, 475 miles an hour. SR-71 doing 8,000 gazillion miles an hour, 2 miles a minute. I think.
Sure.
Yeah, but up there though, it's pretty safe airspace until it's not.
But you had a balloon. You had a Mylar balloon go by you.
Yeah, I did one time a long time ago. But yeah, went tearing by close enough that it got my attention. Yeah.
Did you whip a camera out and turn around and take a picture?
No. I'd never find it doing that. And, it's funny because it was the very, very first high mission I did solo in training back in '89. And I'm flying along Southern California, thinking, I'm all by myself, and I'm digging down, getting my tube food already, and I was down over like in the LA region, and in my peripheral vision, I looked down and saw something, and looked out, and there was another U-2 going. I caught the motion, and I thought, holy smokes, what are the chances I'm in my peripheral vision catch another U-2 going? I'm like, I'm not that alone up here,
Yeah.
But, yeah, he was he was probably 5,000 feet below me because that's what we're supposed to be. But I felt like he was about 2,000 feet below me, but enough that I could see him in my peripheral. So it's
I mean,
Northern California is not where you want to be above 60,000 feet on a Monday through Friday. There's a lot of moving traffic up above 60.
Really? So if you're up there at altitude, I mean, the LA speed check thing on the SR-71, with the tailwinds and stuff, can you actually get that in the U-2? Can you hit such a jet stream up there that you're doing 700?
Yeah, not even close. Normally we're so far above the jet stream, the winds are usually below 10 knots up where we're at. And again, we're doing 0.71 Mach at our cruise, and it works to about 410 ground speed for the most. It's 410 true. It's about 410 ground speed depending on the wind.
So you got the autopilot on, right? And the computer's just following the magenta line, and you're just kind of monitoring everything.
Yeah, your mission monitoring. Keep making. There's just keeping an eye on everything. And there's on an operational mission, there's different folks you're talking to through various comm links, and you're just there to make sure the aircraft stays exactly where it's supposed to do. And some of them involve maintaining a constant altitude in a very, very specific position, and we don't have an altitude hold function in the we don't have a auto throttle function, so altitude hold is a little more user intensive than it should be in other aircraft, because we have a very small window to operate in on the airspeed. But yeah,
So-
go ahead.
So as you're sitting there, describe to me. I mean, I'm sure high flight comes into play as you're climbing up there, but what is it like as you're going through the different altitudes? So you go through 30,000, we all been there. 40,000, been there. As you go through 50,000, 60,000, 70,000, what does it look like outside of your canopy?
It's the view is spectacular. It's you start to really see things above 55. And for me, 60,000 feet is kind of it's kind of a milestone to get above 60,000 feet.
Yeah.
But when you really start to see things break out when you can get above 70,000 feet. But even at 60, I sent you a couple pictures, I think, of the sky and everything from a while back, and those were taken. I was on a long range cruise. I had the power back. I was in the low 60s on that particular flight. You can just see the sky is this indigo. It's pretty much black. Middle of the day, black. You don't see the stars, but it goes black, black, black. Light. Kind of a super dark blue, back to the normal blue that we see. But it's just beautiful. And sunsets. You literally see the veil of the earth, of the shadow, come across, the Terminator, as it goes down. And when you're up at altitude, it's really stunning. And I looked at, in fact, I flew sunset high about 2-3 months ago, and I looked at what time it was on the ground and what time sunset was up when we actually lost the sun up high. And I think the difference was like 28 or 29 minutes. Just the altitude gave us that much, 29 minutes more sun.
Yeah.
It's spectacular up there. Now if it's pollution, haze, whatever, you don't see as much. But I still remember one day. It was March 8th of '98. That was my mom's birthday, and I was flying a training flight over California. It was the most crystal clear day I've ever seen. In the Farallon Islands out off the coast of the Pacific, I felt like I could reach out and touch them. And just looking out to the east, I could see the mountains around down by LA. It was
Curvature of the earth.
Oh, it was spectacular. It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I've never seen a day quite like that.
And so as you're cruising along, I mean, with the colors and stuff, do you ever think about pulling a camera out and, you get some good shots? Or
I've done a little bit of that, but I'm not a good camera bug. I don't have the gear, and I now bring my iPhone up, and everything I sent you was off my iPhone.
Yeah,
but what I do now is rather than try to beat them, I join them. So we've got some guys in the squadron that are great photographers. So when I need a great picture, I go to them and, hey, can I get a picture? And I've given away gifts. I blow them up, and it's from Ross Francomont or Dane Collette or some of the guys that are great photographers that shoot this stuff. And some of these guys are online, and you can get some beautiful, beautiful shots from them.
I remember one of the guys in our group posted a photograph and said, "Hey, I see you down there at Big Bear," or something like that. It was a beautiful overlooking California, Big Bear Mountain, and it was like crystal clear. And here he is at 7. I'm sitting there thinking he's at 70,000 feet, and there's a tiny little dot. Looks like something you see off of a space shuttle. Yeah,
that was a guy we call Stu. Call sign's Meat, but he flies for NASA. He was up here flying U-2s with me back in he retired in 9 or 11, and took a job with NASA down flying. NASA's got 2 ER2s. If you ever see a white U-2 flying out of Southern California, those are the NASA guys. And
so what are they doing in there? What are they just running experiments with there?
So if you got an experiment, you've got a company, you got to take a payload to altitude. You work a contract with NASA, and they take your payload to altitude, and their pods on their aircraft, those big pods under the wing, we call them super pods. They're not fuel pods. They're actually packed with equipment. So on the Air Force jets, they're not pressurized, and we've got sensors in there, for lack of a better term, signals intelligence processors and antennas. NASA, they're actually pressurized pods, and they can put a variety of different experiments in there. And
I've seen something on the hump on the back.
yeah,
One of them on the top, though.
yeah, the Texas Aggie drop tank, as I like to call it. But the
my daughter,
yeah,
my
the big
daughter would
teardrop,
argue with that. Yeah.
a big teardrop shaped pod back there, but all it housed in there is an antenna, a dish antenna for data link.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. And the thing is so huge because when they came up with that data link, and I keep doing this outside the screen, but back in the day, the antenna was huge. In 30 plus years, we've shrunk the antenna down. So when you see that big pod, they open it up and you look at the antenna, it's like, that's it? That's all there is in there? Yeah. But that thing, even though it looks so huge, it's really aerodynamic and really puts very little drag on the aircraft.
Well, can they do instantaneous now? I mean, like your photographs can they just zap photographs that you just took right now to Joint Chiefs of Staff and everybody else, or do you have to go back and develop this big giant film?
No, that's a good question, but that's one of the things that we can do the near real time, and that's what's really changed the U-2. When we did start doing that years ago, that's what really brought the U-2 in with the into modern warfare with those data links, and we have a pretty robust data link network. The sensors are really good. We do carry wet film. The aircraft was designed to carry wet film, but we do very few wet film missions anymore. But there are some very specific and niche missions that work really, really well with that really high resolution camera. But now with when it comes to imagery, we can shoot a synthetic aperture radar, take a picture with a radar, or we can shoot a picture with an electro-optical sensor. It can be multispectral. It can just be, just like looking like a video camera, or a color photo shot. But they're obviously multi-gazillion dollar sensors on the aircraft, and they do some really, really neat stuff. It's all digital, and when it's digital, what does that mean? You can pump it back to the data link, and somebody can look on the ground 7,000 miles away, talking to you real time and going, hey, this is we're getting some really good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, SA is incredible. I mean, you don't have to wait for the return to mission.
Yeah.
Last week I was talking about my pilot, Dick Lawyer, the guy that when I flew in the F4, we were up at 53,000 feet, and I told you he was sitting there, his visor's down. I mean, I can't see anything. I can't see his face. His visor's down, and he's just sitting there like this, and the oxygen's forced oxygen, and he's like, oh, hey, Taco, if we lose an engine or something, don't worry about it. We'll be dead. And I go, now you got my attention. What are you talking about? And that's when I found out about 50,000 feet. Well, he's sitting there staring at the blackness, and I'm thinking, when's the son of a bitch going to push the nose over? When are we going to start down?
Yeah.
And then years later, I find out he was part of that MOL program, that Manned Orbital Lab Gemini top secret space program that they had developed, but he never got to go into outer space. Yeah. Which sucks for him. They found his spacesuit, 40 years later, and they didn't even give it to him. They ever let you keep your spacesuit? I mean, that's a Huggy spacesuit.
I've never really gone and collected that kind of stuff, but I've seen bits and pieces some people have. I get to keep the urine collection device for whatever. These are not cheap. It's a couple $100 probably. I don't know what the government is charged for those, but
that's got your DNA in it.
It does. But the spacesuits actually get reused when you're done with the spacesuit. They have a 13-year shelf life. So when you're done, they take it down and they find the next guy that's your size or gal, and they size it up and they have you do it. Now you would think, hey, when the suit goes away, can we give it to somebody? I'm sure it happens, but if it does, I don't know of anybody that has a full spacesuit. But what was really sad is about 15, 20 years ago, the building by us just had chock full, the real skin tight pressure suit you were talking about, the partial pressure suit. There was hundreds of them in there, hundreds of them. And one day they decided to get rid of them, and they basically cut them all up. And I just lost my mind. I'm like, oh, it would have been great to hand those out to museums and people that could use them displays, but they ended up cutting them up.
Well, I definitely would have kept the helmet. Come on, I mean,
I don't know where those must have gone somewhere. I don't know where they're at, but
they're in somebody's "I Love Me" wall, man. They're like
where they are
behind them. One day they're doing a video interview. OSI will be knocking on the door in about a week, going, "Hey, I saw you on Tall Tales of Taco. You got your spacesuit and your helmet."
My buddy Egg, he lives in Nevada, and he's probably got one. I was actually at his "I Love Me" room he calls the little bamboo. But he's got all kind of memorabilia. But if he's got a spacesuit, he's got that stashed away. So I haven't seen any of those. But Egg may have one. We'll see.
Hey man, I'd soil it on purpose so it was ruined, and then when they go throw it away, I'd snake that son of a bitch out, clean it up. You know.
If you end up doing that, if it's a pretty solid waste, they just take the liner out and throw it away. It's about $15,000 of damage, I think.
Yeah.
But if it's if it ends up being diarrhea, something like that, it gets up in the vents. It's the suit's kind of a mess, so they have to send it back for a major overhaul. But unfortunately, that's extremely rare. And like I said, I have never done that.
Knock on wood. Those that have and those that will.
I will not do that.
All right. Let me ask you another question. I mean, you and I are both the same age. Thereabouts. You ever watch Project Blue Book when you were a kid? You remember that show?
I do remember it vaguely. Yeah, I didn't watch it, but I remember a little bit of that. Yeah.
So the guy was an Air Force B-25 pilot and saw the UFO or something when he was flying the B-25. Have you ever experienced anything? I mean, because now, it's kind of like don't ask, don't tell. We can talk about it now. Have you ever experienced anything up at altitude that you just go, I don't know what the hell that is. It's probably Russian, Chinese. I don't know what it is, depending on where you are. But do you ever experience something where you just go, that looked really weird? What the hell was that? I'm at 70,000 feet.
Yeah, I did have one thing, and I was flying at night, probably 2, 3 in the morning, and I don't want to get into too much detail on this, but it was an extremely bright light that just suddenly lit my cockpit up. I mean, to the point that it was like daytime.
Whoa!
And
did it fly by you?
No. So that millisecond, your brain, something happens. That millisecond before I could turn and look, I thought it's a landing light. I'm about ready to have a midair. Well, I'm at altitude. It's not, that's irrational. But I mean, it blinded me. It was blinding. I turned and look, and out in the distance, there was this. It just looked like something this big out in the distance, almost like if you took a piece of magnesium and held it in front of you, just burning, just most brilliant light, just illuminating. It kind of rose up above the horizon, paused, and went back down and extinguished. That was gone. And
that is not a satellite.
There's a little more to the story, but I don't want to go into it. But that was I never figured out what that was. It created. Yeah, I said a few things on the link and on the radio that got people kind of excited, and ended up getting some eye tests afterwards. Actually, I mean, that guy got a full blown eye test. They dilated the eyes. I was grounded for a couple of days for it, and and I was never told if anybody knew what it was, but it was really weird.
That's amazing. Now, see, that's the kind of stuff I always like to ask, because I've got, I don't know, what, 10,000, 12,000 hours in the air. I mean, how many years is that living in the air if you did 24 or 365? And I have not yet. I mean, I'm just waiting to pop the iPad out and start videotaping something. To be that guy. I want to be that guy. These F-18 dudes are so damn lucky, and F-16 guys. Actually, F-18 guys seem to be the ones engaging in these unknown objects.
Oh yeah, the Tic Tac.
Tic Tac. He's going to be on. Dave, Sex.
Good.
Yeah, Favor. He's going to be on, and then those guys over in the Atlantic side. They were sitting there doing an exercise, and that just recently came out that looked like they called it a tonsil stone. The guy in the back seat in the F-18 took a picture of it with his cell phone, and it looked like a big flying tonsil stone.
I had missed that one. Okay.
You're like, what the hell is that thing? You just.
Yeah, there's certainly a logical explanation, but it was a very odd thing happened. It was over 20 years ago it happened, but it was. Because
we fly as a commercial airline pilot. The only thing I've ever seen weird ever was sitting there flying along, and this big, giant, bright object came screaming into the atmosphere. I thought it was literally that bright. I thought it was an airplane on fire as it was disintegrating coming in, and flying from DC back to Kansas City. And I go, holy crap. And the guy I'm sitting there with, I'm like, did you see that? Because a lot of times you see a shooting star and your buddy misses it. But he's like, oh my God, what is it? Because it was slow. It was just like burning in like that. And a couple guys got on the radio and they're like, holy crap, anybody see that? And so, we're all answering, holy moly, man, that thing was huge. And then a center came up and goes, yeah, that's a Russian satellite re-entering the atmosphere.
Oh, that's pretty
Like,
neat.
yeah, that was different, and I saw that. And then I saw the space shuttle blow up overhead when I was flying into Dallas the day that the shuttle disintegrated. But that one, I'd seen the shuttle come over Texas at night, and
Yeah.
it looked like, at nighttime, it looked like a bright headlight out there in the west as it was moving. And then as it was flying overhead, even at night, you could see the contrail behind it because the sun was still hitting the contrail. It was so high. And the morning that we were coming in from Huntsville was at like 7:45 in the morning, 8 in the morning. I just remember we're coming in and we're at maybe 11,000 feet. And somebody said, hey, what's that bright light out to the west? And we look and we could see that it looked like a headlight. And then as it was getting closer, we could see the contrail behind it, but you could see all these sparks coming off of it, blue, yellow, red, all these sparkly things coming off of it. And somebody said, well, the controller goes, oh, that's a space shuttle. It's going to land in 15 minutes, Cape Canaveral. And somebody goes, yeah, it's putting on a hell of a light show. And we're watching it, through the cockpit. And we're like, yeah, man, that is incredible. And then as it went over this way, kind of, okay, get back to business. They cleared us down 6,000. But when we landed and we got up to the gate, it was like 9/11 all over again. Everybody's watching the televisions.
Yeah.
And that's when they talked about, we just witnessed the space shuttle disintegrating. And I was always amazed that during that incident, no airplane was hit. Because, you talk about big sky, little airplane.
Yeah.
That was a lot of, even if you got hit by a piece of plastic doing 500 miles an hour, 600 miles an hour, and you hit a commercial airliner with that, that's going to put a hole in the plane. I always thought
damage.
It is really amazing that like an oxygen cylinder or something heavier didn't hit.
It would have been catastrophic. Yeah.
Oh, it would have, and they never would have known what hit it or what brought the airplane down. But yeah, that was amazing. But I was always wondering. I want to ask you, and I'm going to ask Rich Graham that as well, because up at 70,000 feet, you're pretty much alone.
Yeah.
You don't get a lot of other traffic up there, do you?
Not too much, not operationally. Again, around the CONUS, another U-2, or back in the day, the SRs doing their thing. But the RQ-4 doesn't really fly up at our altitude. They're usually below us a good bit. So yeah, there's not usually too much traffic up there. I'm glad you mentioned Rich's name. Another great American. He lives out your way. So
yeah, Rich Graham. He's a retired American.
Yeah,
I met him 22, 23 years ago as a young new hire. I'm sitting up there, met his wife, and she's beautiful English, Pat. She's a beautiful English lady. And she's like, oh, hello, how are you? And
they're wonderful people.
Yeah,
wonderful books. He's written some really great books on the U-2 or on the SR-71. He was the wing commander at Beale up until about 2 years. I think until about 87. I got to Beale in 1989. So I knew the name, but it was many years later before I finally got to meet Colonel Graham and Pat. And again, wonderful folks and just very, very generous. We've had some great times at Oshkosh with them. Really good stories going back to Oshkosh with them.
Well, I'll have him on and we'll definitely tell him I said hello for you.
Yeah.
Now, you were talking about some of your air show stuff. I know you do like some of the Reno. You do some of the Reno stuff. Do you have any good stories about the late great man faster than the speed of sound, Chuck Yeager?
I don't have any really good stories on General Yeager. He lived just up the road here, right outside the Beale Gate. In fact, they named one of the roads going out one of the 5 Beale Gates, General Yeager Road. No, I didn't have too many dealings with him actually, and but I got involved in the air show circuit many years ago, and I'm sticking with it. And
do you ever get a ride?
What's that?
You ever get a ride in the back of a P-51 or P-38 or anything cool?
Yeah, I've flown in the back of a two-seat dual control Mustang 3 or 4 times. Actually, a really good friend of mine has taken me flying in his, and he's taken me down to the big Chino Warbird show a couple times in his Mustang. I've gotten to fly some really, really exquisite aircraft. Not checked out in them, I'm the orientation pilot in the back seat kind of thing. But yeah, there's been some really, 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 really neat adventures flying the Warbirds.
So when you go back to the U-2, when you come in and land, Bruce Kalpak asked this question right here. Can you see that? Do they still land with the support vehicles running alongside?
Yeah, and I'll break a little bit of a myth, and other places will probably keep the myth going. But since this is this is a nice intimate group, the rumor is the plane lands and the vehicle gets underneath and stops the wing from hitting the ground before it comes to a stop. That's not true. So what we do is when we come into land, there's another U-2 pilot in a chase car who's making the radio calls for your altitude, 10-8-6-5-4, letting you how far the main gear is above the ground. He'll make rudder calls. There's a bunch of other little nuanced calls he can make. And everything you'll read in the press is that, oh, he's there because you can't see outside the aircraft. That is not true. We can see just fine outside the aircraft. But it's
really
when you're coming back wearing, with $350 million worth of sensors on the back of the aircraft, having another set of eyes when you're 10, 11, 12 hours flying and 15 hours awake, you're just not quite at your A game. Having somebody else go, right rudder, when you're 2 feet off the ground.
Yeah.
And I had a guy named Bob Gardner. He kept me from getting the plane in trouble. I was on my 1,000-hour flight, I think, in the U-2, and had it not been for his call, I think it would have probably done some damage to the aircraft.
Really?
So it can really make a big difference, but it's a little overblown in the media. The other thing is there's a second truck vehicle that comes in. It's a truck carrying a few of the maintenance professionals, and they've got the outrigger wheels. On the B-52 and the Harrier, the wheels fold up. On us, they fall off on takeoff. I mean, who came up with that idea? Well, it's less weight, less complexity. So when we land, we don't have those outrigger wheels on the aircraft. We come to a stop. As you roll out, you fly the wing all the way down till the wing won't fly anymore. The wing actually tips over and drags on the ground. You got a little skid underneath the wing. As long as you don't hit anything raised up, you're fine.
Right.
And then the guys come out and they pull the airplane. They literally get 2-3 guys. They pull the wing up. They go underneath. They crank in one of these outrigger wheels. They run over the other side and stick in the other wheel. And then you taxi back to parking with your wheels in. You can see it on YouTube or anywhere on the internet if you go take a look. Yeah. So yes, to answer Bruce's question, we still have the mobile, we still have the chase vehicle, and we still have the guys that come on there and pogo the wheels after we come to a full stop.
Now, what about the secret program back in the 60s where they landed U-2s on aircraft carriers?
Yeah, Google it or YouTube it. U-2 aircraft carrier land. You'll see the landings on there. So the French were doing some tests out in the Polynesia, out in the middle of the Pacific, and we couldn't get out there to go sniff the particles after they blew it up. So they came up with this idea. Let's get some Navy guys that they got a few Navy guys that carrier guys, and they came out to Edwards and they got some U-2 guys, and they said, we're gonna have you teach us how to get this thing off and onto a carrier so we can go out there and when the French pop off a nuke, we can go sniff it. And if you want to know a great history on this, there's a British guy named Chris Pocock, P-O-C-O-C-K. And Chris has got I think it's dragonladytoday.com. He's got a website, but Chris has written a number of books, and he's got extensive history on all this stuff. And Chris is kind of the smartest historian on the entire U-2 program. But so they got these Navy guys and the Air Force guys together and the U-2 together, and they trained a few guys up to go take off, and I think they flew 1 or 2 missions against the French nuclear test out in the Polynesia. This is back in the 60s. This is
so they took them out on the aircraft carrier.
I think it was the USS America. I think it was the America
guys off the aircraft carrier to go do that.
I don't know. They launched them off, but they certainly covered them onto the carrier, if I remember right. But yeah, it's a very it was a crazy bit of training and story, and a very unusual story. The plane's a 104-foot wingspan. I know the 130 is even bigger, and they put the 130 on the carrier too. But
right.
Tail dragger. They had to make some. The landing gear will rip the tail wheel right off. So they had to make a lot of little modifications and think a lot of things through. It's a miracle they could pull it off. But
Did you know if they took the landing wires off?
No, they actually have a hook that they had a hook on. They put a hook on the belly of the U-2 right in front of the tail wheel. In fact, in our squadron, we've got one. There's about 5 or 6 of the hooks surviving. We have one of the surviving hooks. Yeah, I'll have to go get a picture of it and send it to you. I'll text it to you. But
that's cool.
We have one of the hooks, and it's a crazy story. But go if anybody's watching this, go pull it up on YouTube.
Google U-2
carrier landing. Yeah, it's
U-2 carrier landing. I'm sure that was top secret for years.
Well, we actually had a couple. I think we had a couple of Brits that we were going to check out on the program too. They ended up doing, I think, the checkout in the carrier, but ended up not flying any missions. Got recalled back, but. Yeah, it's Chris has got the whole story, Chris Pocock, and I wish I could remember all the details. There's just so much U-2 history. It's hard to pull it up off the top of my head, but yeah,
Did the Brits ever? Did the Brits ever do an exchange program with the U-2 guys?
They I wouldn't call it an exchange, but they came over and they flew the U-2. Yeah, we've got. If you look on the list of pilots, there's a lot of RAF pilots that flew the aircraft. I'd probably 15, 20 guys that flew the aircraft. We have a number of the Chinese pilots from Taiwan that flew the aircraft. I think 5 of them were shot down over mainland China. You know, if you ever go to Beijing, you'll see a U-2 wreckage sitting out there from that.
Really?
Those guys came to our reunion about 15 years ago. Some of the surviving guys, and yeah, pretty. Talk about Iron Men, wooden ships, man. Those are some brave guys. You know, doing their act. And a number of them are still alive, and I communicate with them. I kind of run the U-2 alumni association, if you will, for the pilots, and I'm still in contact with a few of the Taiwanese pilots. They're wonderful people.
So they had their own U-2s?
No, they actually used ours.
Wow. How many? I mean, do they still build those things, or
the last U-2 rolled off the assembly line in October of '89?
Wow.
In history, 104 U-2s are built, and we've got, I think, 31 flying.
Wow. And how many pilots, alumni?
About 1,070, 1070 roughly.
Yeah. What a hell of a club, huh?
Yeah, it's 65 years. It works out to about 16 pilots a year, and that includes everybody that so a lot of people come out, were commanders, came out and flew the aircraft, a couple flights, to because they're gonna be the commander. But operational guys, probably 800 and 800 guys, and then another few hundred that commanders that got to get a check out in the aircraft. Pretty small community.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that is just tiny when you think about it.
There's more people, more Super Bowl starters wearing Super Bowl rings than there are U-2 pilots. Yeah.
What a hell of a club to be part of.
It is.
What was that guy's name? Jeremy, British guy. He got a backseat hop.
Yeah.
Who got to fly that guy?
Yeah. Actually, the guy we talked about, Stu, who flies for NASA, was going to fly him. And Stu got sick the night before. So he and a guy named Cabby still works to be a civilian. He's the site lead for the contract. So Stu drove the chase car, and Cabby flew James May. James May was his name. He flew James. And funny story on that. James was out there getting suited up, and I was in ops, and I got a call. They said, "Hey, could you come on over here? Mr. May's not having a good experience out here." So he was getting in the pressure suit, and he was a little claustrophobic.
Really?
Before, and as I just kind of went over and, hey, James, how you doing? Visors up, and we had a little bit of chat, and 20 minutes chatting with him, and drop it down for a few seconds and back up, back down, and we finally, it's a very unusual experience, but he got himself all good to go. But that was my little one-on-one time with James May, and
so what do I have to do as a former C-130 guy to impress the Air Force enough to get a backseat hop?
I think
U-2.
We got to do it. We got to figure out a way to do this, Taco. We got to get you. Got to continue to grow your fan base. Get you on BBC, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, what do I have to do? Buy a couple kegs for the ready room. I'm willing to do it.
The funny thing was about 6 months, 8 months, whatever it was, before James May flew. I was in the ops office when somebody came in and go, "Hey, here's the list of public affairs flights coming up for the year," and we looked down here and went, "Oh yeah, this, BBC, yeah, whatever." I'll go for this one. I'll take this one. I'll take this one. Both was left. It didn't say it was Top Gear. So had I known, I would have been the first. I would have been probably the first or second guy I would have taken that flight. I would have flown him, but it didn't work out that way. So Stu and then now Cabby got to fly him, and
I watched that video.
After he flew, though, we had a really nice time in the squadron bar with him and the production crew, and really, really nice folks.
Oh, that is awesome. Well, I don't have any extra questions. Anybody has any questions right now for Huggy, go ahead and post them. And let's see what we've got here. Here we go. A question for you there, Huggy. Sir, when you flew a mission, how did you know you were photographing the correct location as long as that information isn't classified? That's a good question.
I can tell you, but I have to kill you. No, when you're with the camera, we've got we know the targets in advance, and so we're on the navigation system, and we're just navigating over the targets, doing our thing.
Is it shooting straight angle? You have to
the angle
pay.
we have now it shoots a kind of a wide pattern, really, really high accuracy. Further out you get a little bit less, but we fly right over the right over the area, and there's a certain tolerance we have, which I can't get into, but we'll fly over the area, but we don't fly that much wet film anymore. let me pause. Opening day of Desert Storm, I got to fly opening day of Desert Storm. We had a camera called the H camera, super long focal length, and we could slew that camera over. That was the old, hey, is he smoking Marlboros or is he smoking, Lucky Strikes, that kind of thing. So
Really?
we could slew that camera over there and take a look, but we don't have that camera anymore. But what we have now with the sensor of choice, the imagery of choice, in my opinion, is the synthetic aperture radar. Because day, night, weather, it doesn't matter, and it's getting better and better. Take some really great shots. So we can fly on the track, and they can slew the radar and do anything they want with it. So we can be anywhere within the radar's range, and they being the folks that are on the data link with us that control the sensor, they can make it do what it needs to do.
Oh, nice. Any record of incentive flights? Would love the back seat. Sure, that's a long shot. Thanks for the interview, Stefan. There we go.
Stefan, all I can say is get in line, my friend. I think you're right behind Taco on this one. So
yeah, man, I'd be definitely like Sergeant Armstrong years ago. That seat's mine. I'm in the back of that son of a gun. That's gonna be mine.
We use the T-38 for most of our incentive flights, but I've done at least two I can think of. One was an 06, and I flew Snake Clark from the Pentagon. He was a character. Yeah, big character. I'll get into it. But he's a big wig at the Pentagon. And then I flew one of our crew chiefs, the crew chief of the year, a guy named Sean Lewis, back in '97. Now he's a big Lockheed maintenance guy. He was the top maintenance guy back in '97 or '98 at Beale, and flew him in the U-2. Yes, we don't do it very much. Very, very rare, but it does happen.
Well, any little vignette stories you wanted to tell before we crank it for the night? Any funny things that happened to you that you just
people may have heard the story if they've seen me speak, but I got to tell you a really funny story was this is 1991. I'm in England, and I mentioned the guy John Roush. He was the tweet IP that told me about the U-2 program. John went to England. And then I went to England about a year after him. So we were out there, and we went to I'd been in England about a year and a half. And we went over to right after the Gulf War is over. And in September of that '91, we went over to RAF Lucas. It's right by St. Andrews, where golf was invented. I'm not a golfer, but big deal. And they had a couple of Tornado squadrons and an F-4 squadron at the time. And we went over to the big air show there. Big. The Brits do an air show like nobody else. And the Canadians, they do a fantastic job.
And you drink on the flight line.
Yeah, they drink everywhere. Those guys drink everywhere. And so John flew the aircraft in from Alconbury. It wasn't a long flight, but he flew in the spacesuit. So, and this was the wall had come down, and this was going to be the first visit of the Russians to the West in their demonstration team called the Russian Knights, flying a 5-ship or a 6-ship of Su-27s. So John flies in, lands on the ramp, and he's in the spacesuit. And we're standing by the aircraft. It's the Friday, the Friday before everything happens, and there's crowds everywhere, and there's Russian people, British Army everywhere. It's a great time. And then all of a sudden, here they come up initially, the 9-ship of the Red Arrows, right to come up initial right at you, and right behind them, the 5 Su-27s of the Russians, and they big arrival show, breakout, jets everywhere, noise. It's glorious. We're watching the whole thing. It's pretty cool. And
how many crashed?
Nobody crashed. They come in and land, and we're standing by the aircraft, and one of these Russian guys comes over, a Russian general comes over, and he's got the full great coat, the hat that's like two acres of hat on there,
right?
And comes over with a British Army translator, and hey, Comrade Smirnoff would like to see the famous Lockheed U-2. I look at John. He's senior to me. He looks at me. I'm like, yeah, I guess. So so we got a camera. We have no sense on the aircraft. We just have a basic aircraft. But we got the ladder going up to the cockpit. You can put 3 or 4 people on the platform. Comrade Smirnoff would like to go up and take a look at the up on the top. So yeah, John looks at me. So he walks up there with the translator.
You got the original with Francis Gary Powers. We
should have known. We should have known. So we walk up there and we're looking around. And Comrade Smirnoff would like to know if you could open the cockpit and take a look inside. Yeah, sure, why not? So we open the cockpit. He's looking in. Comrade General Smirnoff would like to know if he can get inside the cockpit. John looks at me. I look at him. Sure, go ahead.
No way.
So he kind of lowers himself into the cockpit, gets in and gets settled in. And he's kind of sitting around looking around, and he kind of looks at the translator and goes, now let me just pause right there, and go back and say, John spent his teenage years. His dad worked in the Russian embassy in Moscow. John speaks Russian. John's listening to the whole thing back and forth. So all I hear is the general go to the army, his escort, the British Army translator. And before I can hear anything back, John looks at me and goes, the Russian general gets this look on his face, looks at John, goes, and John goes, gets up out of the cockpit and storms up the stairs of the British Army. Oh, so, chasing him out. And John is sitting at the top of the ladder, just going. I'm like,
no way.
What did you do? He goes, He goes, he got in the cockpit. He looked around. He goes, this does not look that impressive. This is pretty old stuff in here. And when he looked up at the translator, John said, yes, sir, but all of the important equipment is state of the art and in the pods. And he said, the general looked at him and went, you speak Russian? And John goes, yes, sir, of course. All U-2 pilots speak Russian. So, the ultimate coup. It was a great time. And of course, we had our big rage fest at the club that night, the British club. But yeah, that was
disinformation. He's going back. First thing, he's back there right now, typing back. Beware! All American U-2 SR-71 pilots are trained to speak Russian. That's Ruski.
You ask Rich Graham. I bet he speaks Russian. I don't know. we had a great time drinking vodka with the Russian Su-20, the Russian night team in the bar that night. It was a hell of a weekend.
Well, I'm into armor, and my buddy John Wilkinson is staying up late right now over in the UK watching this. As you can see, as a youngster, I lived in RAF lectures. Is that how you pronounce it? Lukers. That's amazing to know that you'd been there. I had no knowledge of aviation, being an ex-armor recce guy. My question is, on average, what would the length of your average sortie be?
Back in the UK, they were 8 or 9 hour missions, but they've gotten a little lengthy with the Middle East missions. And like I said, we've seen 9 to 12-hour missions depending on it. We don't like to go we don't like to extend that long. You start to make errors and mistakes when you're by yourself doing that.
Sure.
So,
what do you do? Do you do air-to-air refueling with a KC-135, or
no? There's
you guys are all internal.
Yeah, we if we put a full tank of gas on the aircraft, we can fly. We could probably fly 15, 16 hours and have a little bit of reserve. So it's not.
That's amazing.
You're around a physiological. Yeah, you're around a physiological time. But since go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No. The same trip. Since he mentioned he was at Lukers, John was coming into Lukers on that Friday. And of course, the field around Lukers is just packed. And then you know how the Brits are. They are airplane nuts. Up in Scotland, right. They're airplane crazy. There are thousands of people around the perimeter fence. And John's coming on the straight, and you can see the landing light out there, the big U-2 wingspan coming on in. I'm on the radio in the car. And they've all got scanners. They're all listening to everything we say.
Uh-huh.
And his call sign was Rook 28 or Rook something. It was a Rook call sign. And I'm called the mobile. I go, Rook 28, mobile? Yeah, go ahead. Check that your satellite refueling door is closed. Yeah, it's closed. And that was all we said. And this eruption, I could see from around the fence like they had just gotten the scoop of the century, And then over the weekend, a couple of people walk up, hey, so the satellite refueling door. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Right. Off they go. Like we had let the big secret out of the bag,
Yeah. Man, that's an aviation week technology the very following week. I was over in England. I was over with the U-2 spy plane landed, and I have to tell you that the satellite refueling door was left open. I'm very terribly sorry. My name is Nigel.
My 3.5 years flying U-2 in England, that was the best 3.5 years of my entire 28 years in the military. It was an exceptional place to be flying them, and the people were wonderful. We made some great friends, and I was disappointed, very disappointed. I had to have to leave, but it always happens.
I get you, man. When I flew the 777, I would fly over, or 777-78, and my British Army buddies would come pick me up. Keith Banfield and Kevin Brown. These guys would come to the hotel. Kevin shows up in his Mark I Ferret, which is an armored scout car, and he pulls into the taxi stand. There's 2 taxi stand spots, right? And he pulls in, he parks because it's very limited parking. Yeah. And he gets out, and we're all giving bigger hugs and whatnot. And this taxi pulls in, and the guy goes, "Oi, move that piece of shit, oi! And Kevin turns around and goes, if you don't like it, push it out of the way, mate. And he gives him one of those. And I was like, this is a way to
7
start
tons.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, it was great. We drove all over London with this armored scout car with a machine gun up in the turret and the whole 9 yards. There were more pictures of us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, than the London Tower that day. We had more fun.
That's really neat.
Yeah. I love going over there and visiting those guys, and I miss that. Yeah. So one day, do you ever get to go back and go visit your buddies over there?
I haven't been back to England in 6 years. Right before I retired in 14, I flew a jet out of England in January of 14. For any of the aviation buffs on there, you probably saw the picture of the airplane. It said Chris Pocock is in here, written on the side of the aircraft on the equipment bay. But if you saw that picture, that was me flying the aircraft out. We had a lot of fun with the British the photographers that were around the field. I was on the way to fly the plane. We stopped and got out and went and talked to him. And
who's Chris Pocock? Who's Chris?
He's the guy I mentioned earlier. He's the British U-2 aviation journalist and historian. He's got the Dragon Lady Today website, and he's got more history in U-2. He's a wonderful, wonderful resource and a person to learn everything about the U-2 you can. Has some really good books on the U-2 out there. They're very accurate. Probably a little too accurate. If I'd have written them, I'd be in jail, but Chris can get away with it.
And he's probably talked to enough guys. He's got enough firsthand stories. He could tell vignettes as if he lived it.
Yeah, he's been doing it a long time. I met Chris back in probably 91 or 92 in England when he was snooping around the squadron getting data. Yeah.
You know what? You have to do an intro for me, and we could do a podcast with him. Bring him on the show.
I'm certainly happy to introduce you to.
Yeah. That'd be awesome. Any other good stories? I mean, they love it. John says, Huggy, that's a hoot to hear about the refueling door.
Oh, let's see.
Anytime you're up at altitude that you just happen to be bored and you're kind of just picking through freaks or something, and you picked up some air to air, or you did something where you just kind of popped in on the guy and he didn't realize you were there?
No, one of the fun ones I did was I was ferrying a jet across. We always say keep the mystique alive, and I was ferrying a jet across to Korea, coming across Japanese airspace, and the controller comes up and says, "Dragon 24, maintain block 560 to 700." Oh, okay, I'm power back. I'm long range cruise. I'm well within the block. But I go, hey, what? It can't hurt to ask. Unable, Dragon. I need all the way to block 910. Stand by.
Height.
910. Yeah, 910. Okay, can we come back? Dragon, you are clear. Flight level 560, block 910. All right, cool. You can just imagine everybody in frequencies going, what? 910? Are you kidding me? So, you had a little fun with that. I wasn't pushing the power up, but I'll just, long range cruise.
Right. So what is the altitude before you get space wings, astronaut wings?
Oh, it is 50 kilometers. 100 kilometers, 50 nautical miles, I believe. So it's like, if remember when they did the first Spaceship One a few years ago, Virgin Galactic. If you look at the N number on the aircraft, it's like November 328 KF, 328,000 feet KF, 1,000 feet. So 328,000 feet is where you get your wings. That's considered space.
Really?
Yeah. So it's either I think it's 328 KF. If you just look at the picture of the airplane online, that's how you can remember it if you never know. Now there's a little bit of the Fédération Internationale de Aéronautique, blah blah blah. They say it's 100 kilometers. We say 50 miles. And there's a range in there where you're in no man's land. There's about 15, 20 people that got above our altitude, but didn't get above the French one. So they're astronauts by us, but not by the Fédération Aéronautique Internationale, whatever. But I say, hey, the U.S. has put 12 people on the moon. How many of you guys put on the moon? None. We're using our number. It's us. Yeah, you have no say in the matter. So, that's how I look at it. But 328,000 feet.
328,000 feet.
Yeah, we're not quite there. We need a bigger engine.
So that's our 71 guys aren't even astronaut qualified.
No, we only have two U-2 pilots that wear astronaut wings. 4-star General Chilton. Uh-huh. He was a 3-time shuttle commander, and he came over. He was our wing commander here a number of years. Just a fantastic guy. And then Mike Masucci. Mike's my year group. Mike went to test pilot school after his first tour in the U-2. Applied for the astronaut program. Was worked through the wickets. Didn't make the final cut. And then after he retired, I did some corporate flying. And Mike is one of the 3 or 4 Virgin Galactic guys. And Mike actually went and got his astronaut wings on the shot back in February of last year out of Mojave. He was one of the guys that got to the gap. He made the U.S. side, but not the Federation Internacional 100-kilometer side. So I don't care. Mike's an astronaut. I think he's the 570th person to be an astronaut. But those are our two astronauts.
That is cool.
Kevin Chilton and Mike Masucci.
I'm having a brain fart right now trying to remember the name of the guy, but he was in our new hire class. He was a new hire American pilot, and he was a Air Force shuttle commander. This is in '99, and he was sitting there. They go, "What'd you fly before you got to America?" And he goes, "Gliders."
Motor glider.
No, gliders.
Gliders.
I flew gliders. And they're like, "What?" "Yeah, I flew gliders." "Like what?" "Well, I was a shuttle commander." And they're like, "Shuttle," and the person asking the question didn't quite comprehend. Everyone else in the class, I guess, was like, "Really?" And he goes, "Yeah, I was a space shuttle commander, STS whatever 75." I mean, holy crap. How cool is that?
That's pretty neat.
Yeah. Somebody asked about Stoner. Did you say General Stoner?
General Chilton. Kevin Chilton. Kevin P. Chilton. Chilton.
Sorry about that, Bruce. It's General Chilton. And Abby, ground guys, 910 means 91,000 feet. So 91,000 divided by 5,270 or 5
20 miles, 18 miles,
is a long ways up.
Yeah, I think on that flight I was probably in the 60s somewhere, but yeah. So that was just a little, 91,000 feet was what I was asking for to get up to. Yeah,
just to mess with.
Let's have a little fun.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what are they going to say? Unable. We have traffic. We have an American Airlines.
Yeah.
We American Airlines 777 up there already.
No, I don't think so. Especially not a 200 or a 300. But did you ever get shot at? I mean, did you ever see any missiles come up in your day back in the day?
I was fortunate to get to fly on day one of Desert Storm in '91, January 17th, 1991. I flew an H camera mission up and down the Iraqi Saudi border. And if you remember back in the day, if you look at the old maps, there's that little diamond shape area on the border. It's called the neutral zone. I don't know what the heck it was, but I was flying right across the neutral zone, kind of weaving in and out of Iraqi airspace. And I got indications of a surface to air missile launch. I never saw anything. My guess is they were only sending they were sending the signals to make my gear go off, but I don't think a missile ever left the rail. But that was my only. Did
they even have stuff that could reach your altitude?
Oh yeah, you think back, Powers was shot down in '60, and then Rudy Anderson was shot down and killed over Cuba in '62, October '62, during the 13 days of Cuba. 13.
Oh, I didn't know they lost one. How many guys have?
Yeah,
we shot down in the U-2.
2 Americans, and then I think 5 of the Taiwanese pilots over mainland China.
Oh wow.
But Rudy Anderson was shot down October 17th of '62. Anyways, it's back in 2012. I went out to Greenville, North Carolina. Myself and another U-2 pilot went out there, and we were the representatives for the big 50 year of his shoot down. Trey Gowdy was the congressman. He came out. There was a few hundred people out there, and a big thing at his. He was from Greenville, South Carolina. We did a gravesite thing, and it was quite the event, And the guy that was his chase car, the backup pilot, was out there. Retired 1-star General McElmoyle. He was out there. It was quite the event. So Rudy gave his life. He was the first person to get the Air Force Cross. In fact.
Oh wow.
Yeah. A couple hundred of those have been given since, but he was the very first Air Force Cross.
I remember Frank got Silver Star out of that whole deal and the POW medal.
Yeah.
Got this question for you.
Non-strategic image you have caught on camera. Non-strategic image. Well, I should probably admit to this one. Let's see. So we were the rules have changed since then, but man, I don't even want to say this.
You could see a fly on a gnat's ass.
No, I got myself in a lot of trouble. It was completely harmless. We had a camera on board, and we came back, and we were in the U.S. We were landing in the U.S. And we were flying out of Key West, And on the way back in, I flew down the Key West, or the Key Islands, and I shot we had a camera on board, and I shot a picture of Naval Air Station Key West.
Uh-huh.
And the goal was I was going to go to the photo folks, have them blow it up, give it to some of the key people on base that had taken care of us for the 6 weeks we were there. I thought that's a pretty cool picture. You got a beautiful shot, U-2 shot of your base.
Right.
Holy smokes, man! I thought I was going to get court-martialed.
Really? Why?
Yeah, it was. It came, you're photographing U.S. territory. The legalities at the time were such that it hadn't been cleared, or people misunderstood. And all I know, I didn't dive into it, and apparently it's okay now if you get approval. But bad mistake on my part, and it just blew up. It finally got put to bed, and nothing, nothing came of it. But at the time, for a couple of days, I thought, well, I'm pretty much going to end up in Leavenworth. I don't know what, but
you got to be kidding me.
Yeah, it was pretty ugly for a while, and I never dove into the severity. I didn't get a lawyer, didn't dive into the severity. It finally went away, and I was just happy to have it go away.
Man, you talk about, somebody was asking about taking pictures and stuff. Iraq in 2005, as the air boss, I could drive across the runway, and I had my SUV, and I get on the radio and be like, "Hey, Tower, Air Boss 1, mobile, crossing Echo Fox, going over to the VMU unit, 2 unit." So I go over to the UAV, and I'd come in the back door. Now, mind you, you would have to drive all the way around the airfield to get to the unit. And you would come in through the front. They have somebody that would greet you. And, if you're somebody, then CO, XO, everyone would meet you. Well, I had to deal with the XO. I would go pick up old prop blades that didn't run up to RPM. They're French propellers. And if they didn't run to RPM, or they got damaged, nicked, they would pull them off. I would trade cigars for these things. So I come in the back door, and right as I'm walking in, there are no officers around. There's like 4 enlisted dudes, and I hear tick, tick, tick. And I'm kind of excited. I'm like, all right, troops in contact. And I look up on the big giant TV screens they have, and I see these 4 naked girls. And the camera's doing a circuit over top of them. And I'm looking, I'm like, that looks just like the bunker down on the west side of the airport. That old bunker, that looks like the top of the bunker. And they're zeroing in. And about that time I hear, and they're popping all these colored photographs of these girls. And these Army girls would go up there and go sunbathe naked in the top of the parapet that was up there, the old anti-aircraft gun thing. And these guys had discovered them one day as they were flying in, and they didn't think anything of it. This thing's up at 3,000 feet. They can't even see this UAV. Sure. And they're doing circles over top of them. But they would come in, then they would land, then they would hand these photographs out to their buddies, and they would go to the chow hall over on the Army side to try to find the girls. That was excitement for those guys, 18, 19-year-old guys. But
yeah, I don't have anything that good.
Yeah, I thought, I better announce myself. Officer on deck, I'm like, hey, Eddie's, I heard tick, I thought maybe something exciting was going on. I did know that those girls did that. And they're like, sir, you're not going to tell the XO, are you? I'm like, nah, don't worry about it. Sir, you want a copy? I'm like, no, that's okay. I don't need any of those photographs, but I won't tell the XO. Have a good one. See ya, But anyway, hey, I got one more question for you. Here we go. What is the best part and least favorite part about flying the U-2?
It's there's a couple things that's really good about it. The cliche is, it's the people you work with, and it's such a cliche statement, but it really is so true. And it's just wonderful. It's a wonderful place to work, even when you're not flying. You're doing other stuff, deploying. It's really all about the people you're with, and you find that out as you get older, I think. But the plane's a lot of fun to fly. I thought early on I wanted to be a fighter pilot, and I think if I had done it, I would have done. I'd have loved it, but I think I probably would have done my commitment and gotten out. But the U-2 really kind of grabbed my attention, and I did 28 years. Always with the goal of trying to stay in the U-2. Right. A lot of fun to fly. Always a challenge to fly. I had my, I had a lot of. I had some great experiences flying the aircraft. It really is always a challenge to fly. It will always try to make you. It'll try to humble you. It's a hard plane to fly, but
that's why they call it the Dragon Lady, right? So
yeah,
it'll bite you in a heartbeat.
It will bite you in a heartbeat. And
did you ever come close?
I've had a
You
few
have
close calls. I've had some really, I've had a couple of close calls, with damaging the aircraft, but never really did. Um, it's just it's from an aviator standpoint, stick and rudder. It's a
Yeah.
challenge. You got to think fast. It's as we say, we fly final approach at 90 knots. We land in the 60s, and it's the fastest 90 knots you'll ever go.
Sounds like they need
we tell people that.
Sounds like instead of an F5, they need to give you a Citabria or some sort of tailwheel airplane to practice on.
No, the 38 works real well. People go, it's a terrible companion trainer, but it's not, because the 38, you got to think fast in the 38. Even though the U-2 is only doing 90 knots in the pattern, you better be thinking fast. And they actually work out really, really well as a companion trainer for instrument training and for other things we do. But it's getting to fly the 38 and the U-2. The mission's a real world. You don't just train your entire career. You're actually doing the real stuff day to day, whether it's over Iraq, over Afghanistan, up and down the DMZ in Korea, or in the Mediterranean, or wherever we happen to be. The missions are real, and there's people that are in the government and in foreign governments that we are allies with that rely on what we produce to make national decisions, and that's the importance of it. Really, really hits me.
You told me to remind you about a story over Bosnia or somewhere like that.
I don't want you forget that, but no, you're asking about reading and stuff. And I'm not a big I don't go up there for long hours when nothing's happening and do any reading. I monitor the aircraft, and I just find my zone. But I got to fly opening day of Desert Storm 1, opening day of Desert Storm 2, opening day of the Bosnian War. So the night before the Bosnian War was going to kick off, we got briefed was going to kick off, and I'm flying the opening mission that night. And I call back to the house. I can't say anything obviously to my wife, but hey, what's going on? Oh, you got your interview letter from United Airlines. I'm like, oh no! So here I am up in the orbit. I'm literally at midnight, 2 a.m, whatever it is, or 10 at night, and I'm in 70,000 feet ish. Literally watching the war kick off, knowing when it's going to start, and waiting for the first bombs to start hitting. Such a dramatic and horrible thing happening, and here I am. I got the if I got to have an hour of break, nothing going on, I'll pull out my interview notes for United Airlines, study those, while I'm up in the orbit. But it was, the mental part of, hey, I'm getting ready to go off to a new career. And oh, by the way, we're getting ready to start a mission. We're going to be dropping B-2s and 117s. They're going to be dropping bombs on, what we perceive to be the enemy. I mean, holy smokes. It was just a very weird, surreal kind of evening. And and this, I still can't describe it. I can see it, but I can't really describe it. The most unusual sunrise I ever saw was that morning. Maybe I was 9 hours of fatigue, but it was this multicolored sunrise, and I've never seen anything like it. It was bizarre.
Now, did I hear you right? You were talking to your wife at altitude, so did you?
No. I talked to her before I actually headed to the squadron to go fly the mission, before to go brief up and everything.
I was gonna say that's really cool. Be able to plug in and, hey boy, hey baby, what's going on? Talk dirty to me,
Actually, I did do that when my youngest was little. I would, if I was ferrying a jet or whatever, we got on Mars radio. Yeah, I do a Mars phone patch back to the house. At 7:05 in the morning, whatever it was, and they'd patch her through, and hey, have a nice day at school, love you, bye, that kind of thing. And, over. Your wife's going, say over. So the Mars radio folks were really good to me too during doing those things. Yeah, that was good.
That is phenomenal. Well, dude, I tell you what, man, this has just been great. I can't thank you enough. And if your wife's listening, she watches this, tell her thank you so much for letting us borrow you for an hour and a half tonight on Taco Tuesday.
Taco, have a great Taco Tuesday. Thanks for having me on.
Hey man, anytime, twice on Sunday, dude. I'll get you on another one here, and we'll do a follow up. I'll get you and Cracker on is what I need to do. Between the two of you, feeding off of each other, and a little whiskey and a little red wine. I'm sure we could probably have some really, really good stories come out.
Yeah. Well, thanks to all the people that were writing questions and listening in. Mike from Lucas, thanks for listening in. But really enjoyed it, and everybody have a great evening. Hail Dragons.
Yeah, John wanted to tell you, Taco, thanks for setting this up. Huggy, thank you, sir, for making my 12-hour night shift much more enjoyable. God bless you guys. Off to do some work now. Awesome. So yeah, John's a great man. And Stefan says, thank you, gentlemen. Really enjoyed the interview. Abby, Thank you, sir. And Daniel, excellent interview. Love it. Well, you guys, thanks for joining us, all of us out there in internet land. We certainly do appreciate it. And once again, to my friend Huggy, thank you, sir. You are a officer and gentleman. I owe you a beer when I come back out to Sacramento.
Looking forward to drinking it with you, Taco.
You bet, man. We'll talk to you soon, brother. I'm going to take you off and say goodnight out here.
All right. See you later.
Hoorah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for joining us on Taco Tuesday. I know these things are long. I'm going to get some software from my buddy Michael Costanza. I'm going to start breaking these up in like some good 10-minute bites. And when you get a chance, tell your friends, hey, I listened to Taco Tuesday Tall Tales. Go to the YouTube and just hit like, subscribe, and also on the Facebook page, Tall Tales with Taco. Hit like and subscribe if you like it. I don't monetize this, but who knows down the future if Joe Rogan wants to bring me on and say, you know, I actually met this guy, Taco Bell, and, you know, maybe I can be on Joe Rogan's show because I actually enjoy listening to his podcast. Listen to a bunch of different podcasts. It's a lot of fun. Certainly consider this a hobby. And if I die tomorrow, my kids will have something to listen to and maybe perhaps learn something. All of the folks that I pick up to bring on the show definitely bring something that the average person just doesn't talk about or know about. So I hope that through these conversations, you guys have picked up something new, enjoyed it, and look forward to the next episode. If you guys have ever heard the term swift boating, I believe that is going to be next week. So stand by and join me when I have Admiral Shakti on board, who was actually, let me confirm that just to make sure. Well, I've got you guys on here live. And as I talk about it, yes, I have Admiral Shakti on December 22nd, followed by Eric Sebastian. Sabiston, I'm sorry, I always say Sebastian. I am so sorry, Eric. But Admiral Shakti is going to talk about swift boating John Kerry during the election back in the day. It's pretty interesting. So you guys have a great one. Enjoy it. Desi, awesome seeing you. Paul, thanks for joining us. John Stanberry, thanks for coming along with us. And yeah, join next week. You'll hear about how John Kerry shot himself with an M79 grenade launcher and then tried to claim a Purple Heart from that. Well, actually, he did. He got a Purple Heart from that. So anyway, you guys stand by. You'll get the whole truth, nothing but the truth. Until next Tuesday, enjoy yourself, and I look forward to seeing you then. Hoorah, out here.